We're going to begin. It's 5:30 and we're going to begin our August 9th, 2023 zoning hearing board meeting for the city of Reading. I'm going to have the board members introduce themselves and we'll start with Bill.
Es agosto 9 y vamos a comenzar la audiencia para la reunión del Comité de Zonificación de la ciudad de Reading. Vamos a comenzar por medio de que los miembros del comité se presenten. Vamos a comenzar con Bill.
Okay, I'm Phil Rabina. Jeff?
Jeff Gatone.
Charlie?
Charlie Jones.
Tom?
Tom Fox.
Jared?
Jared Bartz, member of the board.
I'm Phil Rabina. I'm a member of the board. And the gentleman we didn't hear from, but he's on the screen, is Bill Harsh. He's also a member of the board. All right, we have one decision to render from last month. It's Appeal 2023-19. It was 1043 Buttonwood Street. Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there a motion to approve the requested relief subject to the conditions set forth in the written decision?
I make the motion.
Is there a
I'll
second? A motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay. Is Sandy Caparella on, Phil?
I am.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We have 5 appeals this evening, and we're going to start with Appeal 2022-42. It is 1262 Cotton Street. Yamari Torres is requesting special exceptions and/or variances to allow a place of worship, even though it is attached to a principal residential use and off-street parking requirements originally denied by the zoning hearing board on December 14, 2022, and remanded to the board for further proceedings. The subject property is located in the R3 zoning district. Okay,
I'm good here.
would
Thank
you swear in our zoning officer, please?
You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Has notice for this appeal been given?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Price.
So this is a remand from the Court of Common Pleas based upon a denial due to on-street, off-street parking requirements that couldn't be met. The appellant's attorney informed the court that they could satisfy the off-street parking requirements, and that's why it was remanded. I don't see the appellant's attorney.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Price, Mike Giles,
Okay, you're there. Okay.
I am here. The appellant, yes.
All right. So we don't have to put any of the exhibits or anything into the record. That was already done. The record is made with respect to the fact about the church seating and all that other stuff. So it really comes down, I believe, to the parking issues, Mr. Giles. So if you could have your client swear in or do an offer of proof about how you propose to satisfy the off-street parking requirements.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Price. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, a little housekeeping issue is one other issue that was raised in the original hearing here was the fact that the adjoining property was a residential property, but now it has a common owner with the property in question. So that issue has been removed from consideration, obviously, okay? I gave the zoning officer the assessment information for both properties now, evidencing that the same owner, in fact, owns both of those properties. Now we'll address the off-street parking issue. Here in this situation, folks, the members do not actually park at the church. There is a bus that takes them to the church and from the church. So the only additional space that would be required here is the van itself that brings them to and from. And the appellant has made an arrangement with the property across the street, which is a laundromat, to have one of those spaces used for that van during the time that services are conducted here at the property.
All right. So you can provide proof if the board were to give you permission that there is a lease for one off-street parking space at the laundromat.
That is correct, Mr. Price.
And what is the number? I can't remember the number of congregants. I think it was around 30 or 35.
No, not even that many, Mr. Price. No more than 15 or 20. And that's at the Sunday service. During the week, there's a lot less than that. They have 4 services, if you guys recall: Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. 2 hours for each service. The one on Sunday is the one that has 15 or 20 members here.
So if the board were to limit the congregants to a maximum of 25 to 30 people, that would be agreeable to your client, Mr. Giles?
Hold on one second, Mr. Price.
Eso lo van a poner como que ese fuera el máximo de 24 en campo. Sí, eso está bien. For like a Sunday service? Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. If that number is 30, Mr. Price, I think my client's willing to accept that.
Yeah, because the intensity, a van can only haul, a big van can only haul 15
Maybe making
people.
several trips. Right. Right.
So 30 would be about max. All right. I don't have any other questions.
I have one quick question. That lot that's next to the church that is now not going to be used for parking. And just to make sure, that's now part of church property and nothing is going to be done with it in terms of parking vehicles there. Is that a correct statement?
If you're referring to 1260 Cotton Street,
Yes.
is that the property you're referring? Yes. In fact, it's being repaired right now to turn into a rental property. So there won't be any additional parking required.
Okay.
The single family home is going to be one tenant. Yeah. And in fact, it appears it may be a tenant who would be a member of the church. So there's another person who will not have to have transportation to and from the services.
All right. All right. Do any other members of the board have any questions?
I do. It's a quickie. Is a copy of the lease agreement for that place across the street? Is it in our hands, in the zoning hands?
It is not. It is not. It was just signed today. Sorry, folks. Yeah.
We can make it a condition of that, Mr. Cadon.
Okay, good.
All right. If no other board members has any questions, does anybody in the audience have any questions?
I have a comment to make.
Yes, please. go ahead.
So just to make the applicant aware, when they submit that lease, we will look into what the parking requirements are for the actual laundromat and how many parking spaces they have. So if let's just say, because for the laundromat, their required amount of parking is 10 spaces and they only have 10 spaces, we will not approve that lease and that parking agreement for the church for that one parking space for the van. So we will need to review the lot where the laundromat is at to see if they even have any parking spaces to lease out. So just wanted to make the applicant aware that there is still some review that needs to be done to make sure that that lease can even be executed.
All right. Thank you. Emily.
Thank you. We understand that description. I don't believe that's going to be a problem.
Okay.
Anybody in the audience have a question?
¿Alguien en el auditorio tiene alguna pregunta?
I did not understand that.
He was just translating what you said.
Okay.
And then, does anybody want to give testimony for this application?
This is the interpreter again. ¿Alguien quiere presentar alguna declaración a favor de esta solicitud?
Does anybody want to give testimony against this application?
Interpret again. ¿Alguien quiere hacer alguna declaración en contra de esta solicitud?
All right, hearing none, the evidentiary portion of this hearing is closed. The board will render a decision at its September meeting. You do not need to be present. A copy of the decision will be mailed to you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank
Can I
you.
just get the
Thank you, everyone.
appearance? Can I get the appearance of the attorney? I didn't catch your firm and address.
Sure. It's Michael Giles, Giles, Post Office Box 6202, Wyomissing 19610-6202.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
everybody. All right, the next matter before us is Appeal 2023-14. It's 544 North 9th Street. Now, this is a hearing that's being continued from the June 14th meeting. Brian Guzman
Now,
is.
I
Brian,
would say is,
Brian Guzman is seeking a dimensional variance and any other required variances to establish a parking lot to accommodate 4 parking spaces. The subject property is located in the R3 residential zoning district, and the owner of record is Iglesia Cristina Casa del Rey. Would you swear in our zoning officer, please?
You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Has notice for this appeal been given?
It has.
Okay, Mr. Price.
Yes, since we already opened up the hearings, I believe in June, by introducing the exhibits, we don't need to do that, but just to be safe, I'll introduce exhibit number 1 is the notice. Exhibit number 2 is proof of publication of the notice. Exhibit number 3 is proof of posting of the notice. Exhibit number 4 is the application, including all of its attachments. And exhibit number 5 is the zoning ordinance of the city of Reading as amended.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present or represented by an attorney?
The applicant is present and represented by Attorney Alex Alfieri.
Okay, thank you.
The interpreter is available in case there's any need for interpretation.
Thank you. There's no need for interpretation.
I think basically, the question comes down to this. It had to do with the dimensions of the parking spaces and how things were laid out, and there was some information missing relative to where the lot opened up into and traffic flow and so forth. So maybe you'd like to begin by addressing those things, and you can feel free to address anything else you want.
Thank you. I would like to submit that a
Oh,
revised.
wait, who is this? Is this Mr. Alfieri?
It is
Yes.
Attorney Price.
All right, so you're doing an offer of proof?
I am.
Oh, okay, fine.
I would like to submit that a revised plot plan had been submitted to the zoning hearing office, addressing the issues that were articulated in the initial opinion that was issued from the board. The church is requesting a variance for the dimensional requirements of the parking lot. In the revised plot plan, the church has shown the dimensions of the grass-covered areas, which were previously not depicted. The church has contacted the Public Works Department, and they have indicated that because the parking lot will only consist of 4 parking spots, no permit shall be required. And the church is requesting a variance for the proposed drive aisle. At its narrowest point, it is 15 feet wide. And the revised plot plan does show buffer strips that have been added along 542 North 9th Street. And the church has also added ADA parking into the revised plot plan.
So the variance, the one variance is from the, what is it, a 20-foot wide drive aisle? You're gonna have a 15-foot wide at the narrowest?
Correct.
And you're saying that because it's only 4 spaces, there's no permit required?
Correct. My client reached out to the Public Works Department and he was advised that because it's only 4 parking spaces, no permit would be required.
And no permit would be required for what, an access to the public street?
But in the prior opinion from the board, it indicated that public works approval was required for the parking lot itself. My client contacted Public Works and they indicated that because it is 4 parking spots, there is no permit that's required.
Okay. And maximum impervious coverage is below the required maximum? So
It
you're
is.
okay there?
It is,
And you comply with the buffer zones?
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, I have a question for Emily. Emily, have you reviewed those plans and is what we've been told in accordance with what was submitted?
Yes. There is still the issue of, there's a portion of the church that's it's a part of the building, but it actually encroaches over. And so we would just ask that they annex the 2 lots together. That way it's all on one lot. It satisfies the encroachment and it also ensures that that parking would be maintained for the use of the church. And that would actually make it more conforming overall once it's all one lot. Because currently the church is at 0, at 100% pervious, 100% building coverage. So adding that little bit from that extra lot with the parking would actually make that overall more conforming.
Okay,
I would like to ask, I really don't understand what section of the church you're saying is going over and encroaching.
So on your site plan where it says small building, that's attached to the church.
Oh, correct, yeah. That's the-
Yeah, so that's
so
it's basically a piece of the church is what we call encroaching onto a separate parcel. So it just makes it a lot better for us and for you for future, if everything is just all on one lot.
Well, we purchased the property that way.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
I'm Pastor Brian Guzman. I'm the
He
representative-
needs
Wait
to
a
be
minute,
sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
okay.
Good.
What were you going to say, sir?
That building attachment was there when we purchased the property. So I didn't have any idea that it had to be placed on the 542 property itself.
No, and
Your speakers, you need to speak into the speaker. It's very muffled.
Sorry about that. Is this better?
Yes.
All right.
No, I said that since we purchased the property many years ago, that property or that small building was always there. We didn't annex it. It was just there. So we didn't really know it had to be on that 542, the 542 property.
yeah, no, it's not annexed, which is causing the problem. So we would be asking for you to go through the annexation process to combine those 2 lots together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think in the future, that will be very much to your advantage that property all be on one deed. Resolves a lot of problems for you in the future.
Okay.
All right, any other board members have questions? All right, anybody in the audience have questions? Anybody in the audience want to speak for granting the variance?
¿Alguien en el auditorio tiene preguntas? ¿Alguien en el auditorio tiene alguna comentario a favor de que se apruebe ese variante?
Anybody want to speak against granting the variance?
¿Alguien quiere hablar en contra de que se apruebe el variante?
Okay. Well, seeing that there's no additional business, unless Mr. Alfieri has something he would like to add.
Nothing additional.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll close this appeal. We'll issue a decision at next month's meeting. You need not be here. The decision will be mailed to you, and we thank all of you for your participation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, everybody still all right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to Appeal 2023-20. It is 726 Franklin Street. Carlos Cruz is seeking dimensional variance for the required lot dimensions and variance for square footage requirements for dwelling units to establish a restaurant on the first floor and one dwelling unit second and third floor containing 3 bedrooms. The subject property is located in the CR Commercial Residential Zoning District. Would you swear in our zoning officer, please?
Do you swear this testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Has notice for this appeal been given?
It has.
Thank you. Mr. Price.
Let me put some exhibits into the record, please. Exhibit number 1 is the notice. Exhibit number 2 is proof of publication of the notice. Exhibit number 3 is proof of posting of the notice. Exhibit number 4 is the application, including all of its attachments. And exhibit number 5 is the zoning ordinance of the city of Reading as amended.
Okay, thank you. Is Mr. Cruz here?
Señor Cruz está aquí.
Yes, I'm present.
Okay, and are you represented by counsel or are you going to do the presentation yourself?
I can do the presentation myself.
Okay. All right. If I understand this correctly, Emily, you straighten me out if I'm wrong. Basically, the only issue is that with the 3-bedroom apartment, they are a couple of square feet short of what is required under the ordinance. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're also asking that they submit a land development plan, mostly because the property is so small. Is that correct?
It's for the change of use to add that commercial unit on that first floor. So
Okay.
it'll be a minor land development.
All right. So basically, my question is, do you have any problem doing the land development plan if we were to grant your request?
He needs to be sworn in. Will you please raise your right
Oh,
hand?
I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's okay. Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you have any problem submitting a land development plan?
No, sir.
Okay. And I have a question for Mr. Herrera. Let's swear him in too, please.
Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Herrera, would it be a correct statement to say that there really is no way to get that additional square footage to become into compliance? Would that be a correct statement?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the question. Couple of things. There's no way that we are short 32 square feet to achieve the 850. So the alternative that we have is to reduce the size of the apartment, so it will not be a 3-bedroom apartment, but just a 2-bedroom apartment.
Okay, that's fine. Any member of the board have any questions?
Nope.
Seeing none? Anybody in the audience have any questions?
¿Alguien en el auditorio tiene alguna pregunta?
Okay, seeing none. Emily, there's anything you'd like to add or say?
Just to put on the record, they have already done a one-stop, and so they're aware of what next steps would need to be if they are granted this approval.
Okay, thank you. All right. If there's nothing else, we're going to close this appeal and we'll issue a decision at next month's meeting. You need to be here, and the decision will be mailed to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody have a nice day.
Good night.
Okay, can the interpreter was assigned for the first and second appeal, and can the interpreter be excused at this point? I believe the other ones are.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't think you
Yes.
for the last 2. Thank you, sir.
Okay, have
Thank
a
you,
good day.
sir.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Okay, if everybody's still okay, we're going to move along to Appeal 2023-22. 1125 Moss Street. Duca Properties LLC is seeking special exception for adaptive reuse to establish 55 dwelling units, or in an alternate, a variance for the proposed use and dimensional relief. A variance for the required buffer strip and off-street parking requirements. In the alternate, to replace an existing non-conforming use with a less intense non-conforming use. The subject property is located in the R3 residential zoning district. Okay, would you swear in our zoning officer, please?
Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
We do.
Has notice for this appeal been given?
It has.
Thank you. Mr. Price.
Next, I'll put some exhibits into the record. Exhibit number 1 is the notice. Exhibit number 2 is proof of publication of the notice. Exhibit number 3 is proof of posting of the notice. Exhibit number 4 is the application, including all of its attachments. And exhibit number 5 is the zoning ordinance of the city of Reading.
Okay, thank you.
Is the
Mr.
attorney-
Cook, are you the attorney of record?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Good evening to you too. You want to enter your appearance, and anybody that you would like to have testify will swear in at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, Mark Cuck on behalf of the applicant Duca Properties LLC, Cuck and Cuck, 217 North 6th Street, Reading, PA 19601. This evening, I have 4 witnesses for you, Mr. Chairman. And so those will be Mr. Christopher Posh, Mr. Mike Duca, Mr. Chuck France, and Mr. Brent Zers. It would be Sandy's pleasure to swear them in at one point. We can do that, certainly.
Okay, we'll swear them all in at this point.
All right, please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay,
So
I guess,
let me just ask a question. Mr. Cuck, you're seeking a variance from the parking requirements to have 0.11 less parking spaces per unit, a special exception for the adaptive reuse, and if necessary, change from one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use. Is that correct?
So close, Mr. Price. Under the adaptive reuse section, and your zoning staff did a fantastic job of reviewing this application, not only for the original denial of the zoning permit, but also in the staff report. So you're going to note in the, I believe it's section 1202 of the adaptive reuse provisions, the zoning board, by the special exception relief that's being requested itself, does have the ability to moderate, modify, and revise dimensional, area, bulk, and parking regulations. So to kind of clarify a little bit with what you just said, the special exception is kind of overarching, overreaching overall. It's I think that the board has the authority, and certainly Emily's here to give you some guidance on that, but I think they could approve the application if they were so inclined, and grant the dimensional relief, including the parking, under that special exception. In the alternative, and just to be abundantly cautious, as you know, I always am, we've asked for the dimensional variances as well. But I also do want to point out to you that there is an additional section you didn't address there, which is buffer requirements, which falls under 1401. And that's for a buffer strip.
Yeah, the buffer strip.
Yep. So that would be the additional request for relief. And then, Steve, in the alternative, if the board doesn't like that argument, we've also requested relief under the fact that this is a pre-existing non-conforming commercial use in the R3 district. And the concept would be that the proposed use that we're presenting to you as the residential would be less intensive than what was previously approved there, which was kind of a manufacturing facility.
All right, so this is one of the old Moss Street retail.
You got it.
Right?
Yep, 1125 Moss plus 3 additional properties properties that we have consolidated for parking requirements.
All right, let's go through this one by one if we can do kind of an offer of proof. You'd be required to have 83 parking spaces and you're going to provide 76 and you're asking for relief from that, right?
Correct.
You have a 6-foot buffer strip shown that needs to be shown around the parking. What do you want to have? How big is your buffer strip?
So Steve, if I could have Chuck France jump on, the civil engineer, he could address that for you clearly, if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
Chuck's already been sworn. Chuck, can you address that question from Mr. Price, please?
Sure. Yeah, there is a 6-foot buffer requirement that is required around the parking area that we're proposing. The degree to which we're encroaching varies. There are 2 sections of the parking area that will encroach the full 6 feet. And then there are other sections that will only encroach 1 foot into the buffer area.
Emily, if I may, Chuck, if you could just hold on for a second. Emily, would you mind pulling up page 6, which I have marked as Exhibit A2 while Chuck's talking about that, then the board can see exactly what he's referring to.
Well, the buffer strip is a buffer strip. It's not a setback.
Correct. It's a buffer that basically between districts. It's around the parking area.
Correct.
Just
But when he says encroach, there's no encroaching. It either is 6 feet or it's less than 6 feet.
It's a reduction, not an encroachment. That's a fair distinction.
Right, yeah.
sorry, quick question. Brent, the plans that you had sent me for the parking, is that the same one that's on page 6?
It is.
Okay, because this one's a clearer copy, so I just wanted to make sure.
So the site plan you have, Emily, the zoning exhibit, the one that's the parking exhibit and the buffer. Exhibit. Perfect.
So there's certain sections of the buffering that won't be 6 feet in width.
So Chuck, the simplest way to answer that question is, what is the smallest width of the buffer at its thinnest point?
0.
Okay.
And where are those?
That would be, if you're looking at the plan to the right-hand side of the parking area, you'll see the red hatching. There are 2 areas at the end of each parking area that are intended to be I'll call it the backup area for the last 2 spaces. So that backup area will take up the full 6 foot of the buffer strip.
So the red hatching is 0 buffer. It's going to be macadam, so cars can turn into that to exit the parking area.
It would be to back up from those last 2 parking spaces, correct?
Okay, so we have 2 areas that are going to be 0. The rest will be compliant, correct?
The rest will be 1 foot. If you'll notice, there's thinner strips as well that are labeled 1 foot dimensions. Those would also be encroachments, or I'm sorry, they would be reductions.
I'll get you a dictionary after this. 1 foot to 0 feet. Okay. All right. So all the apartments, proposed apartments, comply with the square footage of our zoning ordinance. Is that correct, Mr. Cook?
I can make that offer of proof. They do.
And your other legal arguments we can take under advisement, but it's the buffer strips and the parking spaces, a reduction of 7 spaces as opposed to 83 to 76. And that's
Correct.
it.
Otherwise, it's basically the argument for the adaptive reuse, the fact that we meet section 1202 and correct 1101D, we satisfy all the requirements for the size of the units that we're proposing.
Just for my information, what did this building house? What outlets did it house? I'm trying to figure out which one it is.
All right, so I would say Chris Posh or Brent Zur, whichever one of you 2 gentlemen can address that question for Mr. Price, please feel free to do so.
I can take.
This is Brent Zur. Go ahead, Brent.
Okay, so let me just grab my notes here. The property originally started as DS&W Hosiery, which was somewhere around 1917 or 1919.
And what was it? Repeat it again.
DS&W Hosiery.
Thank you.
And that was around 1917, 1919, I believe, that they started in that building. And they were occupied until approximately 1967, at which point Rachman, or not sure the pronunciation there, Rachman Manufacturing Company took over and used the building from that point forward until I think about the mid 80s or late 80s.
And Brent, what did they manufacture there at that time? Do you know?
I know some of the references I found, they were providing things for Army and Navy, protective vests, some other things like that, garments, and just other textiles in general.
Bulletproof and perhaps body armor.
And
Things
I
like
was
that.
just trying to figure out what outlet building it was. Was it
This
ever?
is also, I just want to say also, if you might remember the fire, there was a sister building to this building that we are currently wanting to redevelop.
Right.
And there was a fire right there, right behind the old, where what is soon to be the old 9th and Marion Fire Station. So it's right there.
Oh,
I think
okay.
the
Now-
exact
now I know.
stores,
Now I
I'm
know.
not
what-
100% sure, sir.
Now I know
And
what it is.
Sandy, this is Chris Posh speaking right now.
Thank you.
So Chris, do you know what actual outlet was in this particular building, if any?
Not the actual stores, but it sounds like Mr. Price figured out exactly which building it is.
Yep. Yeah, I know exactly which one it was. I just was trying to visualize it,
Yep.
just for my edification. Thank you. I have no other questions.
Okay, Emily,
Yes.
have we covered all the bases on this?
Yeah, this was, yeah, I provided a table with
Right.
all of the units with their sizes. And so they either meet or far exceed what they're required, and everything else has been discussed.
Good. And you get 10 points for meeting and exceeding. Thank you. All right.
Mr.
Now-
Posh and Mr. Duca, that's about the highest accolade you can get from the
Yeah,
chairman.
this is recorded. He knows this is recorded, so I'm gonna make sure we're gonna go back to him 10 points when I need them.
All right. Okay. Anyway, does anybody else on the board have any question?
Yeah, just a quick one, you know, the old math teacher in me, Mr. Cuck, you dazzle me with your mathematical footwork. Just so when we sit down and talk about this, the justification, and it sounds valid, but from the 83 down to, what was it, 70? That
Six.
you threw out the 0.1 reduction. Just briefly describe to me, what did you mean by the 0.1 reduction? To take
So
it
I
from
think-
80,
Mr. Gattone, I think what Mr. Price was referring to is that instead of providing the ordinance requirement of 1.5 spaces per unit, the actual calculation now is 1.1 spaces per unit.
okay, that's when we start talking about the
It's-
reduction, you
So
realize,
actually I'm the one that did the math on this stuff.
Emily did the
Okay.
math.
Go ahead.
So what it is, they are required to have 1.5 parking
Yeah.
spaces. What they are providing is approximately 1.3 something parking spaces. So
Okay.
it's what we would consider minimal.
okay, you know why we just, every time we hear about the reduction in the number of spaces, that makes our necks sort of twinge a little bit. But,
They're still providing technically more than one space per dwelling unit.
okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other board members a question? All right. Anybody in the audience have any question? Audience question? All right. Seeing none. Anybody in the audience want to testify for granting the appeal? Anybody wish to, excuse me, anybody wish to speak to deny the appeal? All right, seeing none, unless you have something you would like to add, Mr. Cuck, or anybody else, we'll close this appeal. We'll issue the decision at next month's meeting. You need not be here. It will be mailed to you. So we thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I want to thank you very much. I assume you didn't want to hear any more from me this evening, so we'll thank you again and have a great evening. Appreciate your time, everybody. And gentlemen, I just do want to point out that I think Emily and the zoning staff did an unbelievable job analyzing this and making it crystal clear. So I want to thank Emily specifically for that work. It was a job fantastic. Well done. Thank you, everybody.
I'm glad to
Thank
hear
you.
that because we're very proud of the job that they do. They do a good job for us also. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
While we're all giving accolades out, I'd like to say that Chuck did a very good job of depicting exactly what you're asking for. I don't remember seeing red hash marks defining things so clearly very often before. Thank you, Chuck.
Okay.
Thank you all.
All right. You're more than welcome. Okay. Our last appeal for this evening is Appeal 2023-23, 241 South 5th Street. It's Highland Real Estate Group LLC is seeking special exceptions for adaptive reuse to establish 6 dwelling units and variances for square footage requirements for dwelling units and off-street parking requirements. The property is located in the R3 residential zoning district and the Callow Hill Historic District. Okay, would you swear in our zoning officer, please?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Has notice for this appeal been given?
It has.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Price.
Yes, let me put some exhibits into the record. Exhibit number 1 is the notice. Exhibit number 2 is publication of the notice. Exhibit number 3 is proof of posting of the notice. Exhibit number 4 is the application, including all of its attachments. And exhibit number 5 is the zoning ordinance of the city of Reading as amended.
Okay, thank you. All right, is the applicant present? And okay, how do you do, sir? Are you represented by counsel or are you going to represent yourself?
I'm representing myself.
Okay, fine. We'll have you sworn in.
Your name and address, please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay,
State your name and address for the record.
Stephen Figueroa, address 480 Hilltop Road, Kutztown, PA 19530.
okay. Mr. Figueroa, you received information from the zoning office as to why you were denied. So maybe what you just want to do is begin by addressing those things to us, what changes you've made or how you've tried to get as close to compliance as possible. And then that doesn't preclude you from adding anything else to your presentation.
I'm trying to recall here
Well,
exactly what it was that they
well, one was the square footage of apartments. Why don't we start with that?
they meet the requirements. We're proposing 4 2-bedroom apartments and 2 1-bedroom apartments, all which are over the required minimum.
Well, the review says that you have a 1-bedroom apartment it's required at 550 square feet, and the 1-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor is 530 square feet. So that's a variance of 20 square feet.
Okay,
That one, okay,
yeah.
I was not aware of that.
Well, do you think you want to regroup and come back next month and ask and get squared away on what you're requesting and maybe get a lawyer or somebody to help you?
Yeah, the other thing was the parking spaces and how they were laid out. I think those were really the 2 basic issues. And let me just see once here if there's anything.
Mr. Figueroa, did you get a copy of the denial letter?
Yes, I did.
Okay, in your denial letter, for the apartments, I did make that note on there, and then I did also make a note on the information that's required for the parking. So, I am available if you'd want to come in and I could discuss that with you.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that would be most helpful to you. It doesn't cost you any more money to do it. We'll continue the hearing to next month, and
Okay.
that'll give you a chance to work all of that out.
Sure.
Would that be agreeable?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have any opposition to that? No.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Fox. One thing, but I'm looking at here is very, very sketchy for me. I would like to see a copy of the parking plan that I can read and understand. I'm
Okay.
not talking about the apartments. I'm talking about the parking plan.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're looking for. And I would have to say that too. Those plans were pretty hard for us to read. They needed to be a little bit darker and laid out. And I think if you meet with Emily, she will be able to talk you through that. You can get that stuff straightened out. And excuse me, if you need a little bit more time, then please note that to the zoning officer and she'll communicate that to us.
All right, perfect. But what's the big concern with the parking lot?
Yes.
What is?
You have to show exactly what you're proposing and how it deviates from the requirements of the zoning ordinance, so the board can feel that they're comfortable either giving you permission to deviate from the zoning ordinance or not.
Okay.
I mean, this can't be happenstance. You have to like lay it out pretty concrete.
I thought I laid it out pretty clearly, but I guess that wasn't the case.
Correct.
Yeah, let's put it this way. The more clear information we have and the more detail we have, the better chances of you getting approval for something.
Okay.
And that's what the zoning office is there for, to help you do that. And they'll give you the straight information. So.
Yes, I'll follow up with an email tomorrow, Mr. Figueroa, and then we could set up a time.
Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. All right. Is there any other business this evening that anybody would like to deal with? If not, I guess Mr. Price, let you set a workshop at some point.
I will. I'll have my secretary contact you gentlemen to set up our normal kind of workshop session.
Sounds good. So we thank all of you. We hope all of you enjoy the rest of your summer. It's going by in a hurry. And we'll see you next month on the second Wednesday.
Be well, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good
Take
night.
care.
Everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Emily.
You're welcome. Are you guys gonna stay on or can I just
No,
end
no,
everything?
we're gonna have a workshop.
Yeah, we'll do it
Okay.
at the workshop. Go home and open your boxes.
That's for this weekend.
Okay. Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Take care.
Night.